So welcome everybody to this session of On Point in the morning. So a good number of attendees at the moment. I'm sure that more people are going to jump in. So as per normal, we're going to kick off with some news, good news and bad news. Then Rhonda, a quick Surface slide. Then our guest presenter, Jackie, will go through some stuff on from the Office of the Privacy Commissioner. Jackie's the Manager of Compliance and Enforcement, and also Irish. So closed captioning is available at the bottom. Then we've got some prizes and a Q&A. So good news. TechX dates have been announced for Thursday, the 13th of October. So this is Auckland only. We will be flying up select partners for this. It's a good way to get together, look at the whole team and everything that Dicker does, because we've got numerous vendors on there, foremost being Microsoft, of course, but there are other vendors that we have. I hear there are. Certificates. So, you know, I keep on plugging about getting your certification, which is going to be crucial for your new Microsoft Partner Solution designations. So that's built around MS500 and AZ500, and then some certificates after that. But besides getting your certification, you can now also get swag. So new lot of swag is available from the beginning of this month, and it's actually a hoodie branded with the Microsoft logo. I don't have my one on, but I've ordered mine. So get out there, do your certificates. The link through to the Sway page where you can fill out the form and do your LinkedIn piece is from these slides. So once again, you know, click on the slides because they're live, and I'll put the slide deck in the shared folder post call. This is a bit of a red flag to a bull. So as you're aware, the Microsoft Cloud Partner Program is changing. They are asking for some feedback, and you can complete that short survey and let Microsoft know what you think about it. But there are some positive examples there when you can see the examples on how partners are actually seeing value in the new program and how we can do that. When we take Inspire on the road, we'll be focusing on helping you guys get across these new partner designations. This is one that popped up in my email and also seems semi-privacy related, but you know what we do actually does make a difference, and it's small business in New Zealand. So this is a veterinary clinic that had their server. So I'm guessing they had an on-premise server. They're not a cloud thing. So lost all their appointments, lost all their invoices, lost access to all their medical histories. So, you know, to me, dogs are more important than people, but I see the same thing when I go to the optometrist. The amount of people still using Windows XP or old non-supported OSs. So there's a huge opportunity here for our partners, for you partners to start looking at some of these small businesses and saying, hey, look, you know, what is your disaster recovery time? What is your business continuity plan? And of course, putting the fence at the top of the cliff rather than the ambulance at the bottom. What are you doing around your security and protecting your data? Because it doesn't seem like there's a day that goes past without this. So, Rhonda, your piece.
Cool. Thanks, Paul. All right. Oops, it's not taking control. Here we go. Now I've got control. All right. Hi, everyone. It's been a crazy few months. So if you want to join us and become a service reseller and see what all the fuss is about, get in touch with myself or the team today, as we'd love to have you on board. Now, in case you're wondering, yes, we have devices with various accessories available in stock. Yay! All right, don't forget to click on the slide and the links and visit our microsite and register for a customized price file as long as you're already a Dicker Data Service reseller. Let us know if we can help with anything at all, guys, around devices. Thanks, everyone. And back to you, Paul. I'm not going to repeat that.
I always have fun writing on Rhonda's speaking notes. Okay, so Jackie, I'm going to throw across to you. And Jackie, you know, as you'll tell when he opens his mouth, is Irish. Ex-police force, came across here to serve in the New Zealand Police. Are you a detective? It's an investigator, and I saw something about peace was the some interrogation techniques. So I'll use those on you at the end of it. I'll let Jackie do his piece, and then we'll open up for Q&A at the end of that. So if you have any questions, start thinking about them now. You can throw them into the chat window, and we'll come to them at the end. But Jackie, if you want to take control.
I've got it now.
Okay, you have the ball.
Now my Harry my rangatira my. So yes, you'll have found some stuff in relation to peace interviewing. It's not interrogation. It's how do you obtain the most information from an individual without the interrogation. Just because it was RUC, we don't interrogate everybody, So yes, I was a detective. I was a detective senior sergeant with the New Zealand Police, detective with the police in the UK. And then from I left the police, I was National Compliance Manager for MB, and I'm now the Compliance and Enforcement Manager for the Office of the Privacy Commissioner. My role came about with the introduction of the 2020 Act. So prior to 2020, we were working under the 1993 Act, which didn't actually give the Commissioner any enforcement powers. All he could do was tell you off and tell you to go stand in the corner for a bit, or put your name in the paper and say that he was very unhappy with you. Obviously, 93, great year. The initial Privacy Act came out, Excel spreadsheets went live, and so did the internet. The rest of them had developed quite a bit, and we were still sitting on the same Privacy Act. So it was time for it to be renewed. So with the 2020 Act came these enforcement powers. They didn't have anybody to do it. And to introduce it, the Assistant Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner here are both ex-MB, and they asked me to come over from MB and set it all up. So I'm the mean and nasty one, although I am human, but I'm the Commissioner's guard dog, if you like. My main priority here is actually about guidance and education. 90%, 95% of non-compliance is accidental. It's not like policing where from you're a kid you're brought up to be told you don't steal, you don't hit people, etc. People know the rules. With privacy, people generally don't understand a lot of what privacy is. They don't understand what actually they can do, what they can't do, when they have to have things, when they need to have something else, when they shouldn't have things. So due to the fact that most of it's accidental, that's why a lot of my work is aimed at the guidance and education side. If I can make people more aware, then I don't have to go to the enforcement side of things. Hence, the enforcement part of my title is at the end, not at the start. So when you say about what privacy is, and everybody's able to go, oh, yep, my name and my address and my phone number and my mobile. But what about your photograph? So at the moment, Phil Pennington's doing a story at the moment in relation to images that can be your images that can be used off your driver's license and things like that. But we already have cameras all around the place. If you go into the airport now, the cameras in there read your face when you go through security to make sure that you have actually boarded the plane. Because they reckon it's easier than them trying to make sure, and it's for security reasons, they can identify people who are on the no-fly list and things like that. The police use fingerprints and DNA, also personal information. But a lot of personal information goes way beyond that. And the damage that can be done is quite serious. So from COVID came about, the dreaded word, there's been a massive increase in cybercrime worldwide, not just in relation to ransomware, but just literally cybercrime across the entire globe. A lot of people don't see information as being important. So ones that I can talk about and I can poke fingers at because they've been in the media. So the likes of Waikato DHB. Health did not really see information as being the important thing. They thought, oh yeah, people are going to want to hack into banks, which again, the Reserve Bank was also one that I dealt with, which was in the media, so I can talk about. But they didn't see the importance of the information they hold. An individual's information on the dark web goes from $25 up, because if they've got enough information on an individual, you can clone their identity. Now, if you are the poor sod whose information gets cloned and your identity gets cloned, what you will find is that somebody goes, takes out loans in your name, credit cards in your name, runs up a stack of debt. You now have to prove that it wasn't you. In the meantime, while you're trying to prove that, you're down as a bad debtor. You are blacklisted on the credit sites. You can't get a tenancy because you try to get a house. You won't get rent because you're down as a bad debt. You can't get a mortgage because you're down as a bad debt. You can't get a car loan. You apply for jobs and you're on the system as having issues. You then manage to prove to the bank and the credit card companies that it wasn't in fact you and that your identity has been stolen and cloned. And they say that's no problem. It still takes you up to 2 years to have your name cleared with the likes of Equifax, Centrex, Alien, all the different credit companies, because they aren't willing to change that without definitive proof that actually you're telling the truth. Because obviously people just go, no, 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 clear that information on me. It's rubbish. So individuals who have had their information cloned, a lot of them, their lives just fall apart. People have lost their businesses, lost their homes, lost relationships because the data was stolen and their identities cloned. So that's one that a lot of people will think about and say, oh yeah, well, I understand that. But let's be honest, privacy is not life and death. Unfortunately, because of my role, I get to see the worst of everything. And we do have deaths as a result of privacy breaches. So we have ones where people have been so embarrassed or so down after information about them has gone out that they've committed suicide. We have had other people who were hiding from ex-partners and information was given to the partners as to where they were now living, and they've gone out and killed them at their house. We had one not too long ago where an individual was arrested and put in jail for trying to kill their partner, and when they were released from jail due to a privacy breach, they were told exactly where the partner was. The partner, thankfully, we managed to find out because it was reported and we got them moved to a new identity. So privacy breaches can have a massive impact on somebody's life. And the reason I'm saying this is a lot of people don't think that way. A lot of people don't think like a criminal. What is my information worth? Why would anybody care about my information? The reason they care is because they want to get your information so that they can clone it, so that they can then sell it. Even if they don't have the ability to use it themselves, they will sell it on. And there is a massive market for that. As a result, as I'm saying, my role came about, and there is now enforcement powers here. So one of the main powers that I have, and I say powers, it sounds a bit weird because Irish, I'm normally used the same powers, but then nobody understands a bloody word I'm saying. So I can use what's called a compliance notice. So a compliance notice basically means either start or stop something. So if you're doing something that I believe you shouldn't be doing, I come in with a compliance notice. If you're not doing something I believe you should be, I come in with a compliance notice. If you don't obey that compliance notice, you then answer to a judge. It takes it out of my hands. You then go before a judge, and you have to go before a district court judge and explain why you've done that. Because once a compliance notice is in place, it is law.
Does that extend to how you safeguard the information as well, Jackie,
It
or
does.
just how you use it?
It does. No, it's right across. So one of the main issues that I'm finding predominantly in government at the moment is that they pay particular attention to privacy principles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and it's all about how we get in. What they're forgetting about is a privacy breach is not just when information goes outside of your organization. A privacy breach is when information goes outside of what it's supposed to be used for. So you may be working on one thing and the person at the desk beside you is working on something else. And if you release that information, that is a privacy breach. They may work for your company, but they're not entitled to know that information because it's not part of their role. So this is how in depth you need to get when you're thinking about it. So again, going back into, and I can't name people and things, but one where that happened within an agency, the privacy breach. Unfortunately, the individual who got the information, they didn't report it as a privacy breach because they didn't see it was important. The information went to the sister of somebody who passed it on to them because that was the individual who then went looking for their ex-partner. Things like that. So you never know who's receiving the information, what they're going to do with it. And unfortunately, you can put in place the best systems on earth and you can put the best IT systems on earth, but you're always going to have humans involved. And where you have humans, you have problems because you don't control them. You can put policies in place telling people they're not allowed to do things, they will still do them. You can educate people on what they should do and what they shouldn't do. People will still do dumb stuff. It's life. Insurance companies make a fortune out of people getting insured so that they don't do dumb stuff. Police officers make a living from dealing with people doing dumb stuff. I know because the amount of people that I arrested for doing stuff that they thought seemed good at the time and then it lands them in a cell was ridiculous. Thankfully, as a soldier, when I did things like that, everybody didn't walk about with a camera in their pocket. Otherwise, I'd probably still be in jail for some of the dumb stuff I did when I was a young soldier. But that is the fact of it now. Everybody's walking around with a camcorder in their pocket, a camera that literally getting it out. Back in the day, we had a big camcorder, now it's on your phone. So things like that, that is personal information that people are recording. So personal information itself is a huge amount of information sits within there, but the ripple effect when that information gets into the wild can be huge. And the end result, as I'm saying, doesn't happen often, thankfully, but it does result in people being assaulted, people being killed, and people taking their own lives. So I do take it quite seriously due to the fact that I'm the one that sees those reports and has to deal with them when they come in. But it also has massive impacts on people's lives on the financial side, information going on social media, the amount of people that believe because it's on social media, it must be true, and trying to convince them that anybody puts anything up there and you just got to go and fact check it. The amount of information that gets released onto social media and completely wrecks people's lives because once it goes in there, it never really leaves. It just goes round and round and round the net. So that's the horror story about it. The positive side of it is there are a lot of IT systems now that can do more to protect security than we used to be able to. IT is getting much smarter. The systems are much better as long as they're put in place and as long as they're followed. And generally, when you see large breaches taking place in government agencies, it's because they weren't. So again, ones that I can talk about that were in the media, the Reserve Bank. If you go and you read the report on the Reserve Bank breach, that was because they had a system where they had security on that system. They switched it off because they get fed up with it and it was getting too difficult and too painful. So they turned off the security system. Hence, they got hacked. Getting hacked is not something that anybody can really stop. So when I first came to New Zealand, I was a detective sergeant, or not long after I came here, I was a detective sergeant in Waikato, and I had the FBI came over and I had to go out with the FBI to do a search warrant on a house because they had no powers here. And it was because somebody had hacked NASA. And when we hit the house, we found out it was a 14-year-old on a laptop in a rural house in Waikato who had actually hacked NASA. So if a 14-year-old with his laptop at home, instead of doing homework, can hack into NASA, your systems will get hacked. And I'm not going to get offended by your systems getting hacked as long as you have done the best that you can. The reason I got upset with the Reserve Bank is because they switched off the security in their systems, which made it much easier. So yeah, the security systems are there in place for a reason. And if they are switched off or they're not used, that is the point where I will take enforcement action and prosecute. Does that help?
Yeah, there's a a whole lot of stuff in there, besides the, I suppose, the controls around access to information. We also have within the Microsoft portfolio, and part of your security controls is around information protection.
Yeah.
So that's encryption, controlling access and roles. Are there any other slides that you want to go through, Jackie, before I start rabbiting on?
That was my basic introduction, which went a bit long. Sorry. So
that's all right.
Some of the things I've brought up, these have been taken from the UK, the impacts of privacy. The fines that are coming out now, governments are taking privacy very seriously, and the fines that are coming out are getting huge. So the previous privacy commissioner here has now gone over to the UK. Just before his arrival, they had to reduce a fine that they'd given British Airways because the fine was so big it was actually going to bankrupt the company. It was $125 million. They can hit you for up to 5% of your gross annual income as a fine, which is rather serious.
And in New Zealand, we're looking at $10,000.
It's $10,000, but it's $10,000 per incident. So one agency I was speaking with recently, I pointed out to them that if they didn't sort it out, I was going to hit them with $1,010 fines.
Okay.
That made them pay attention because it adds up quite a lot.
I know it's probably one for the lawyers, but is there a liability under Human Rights Act as well?
So what happens within our within the Office of the Privacy Commissioner, we have two teams. I'm the manager for compliance and enforcement, and I deal with systemic issues and things like that. We also have the investigation and dispute resolution team, where an individual can take a case against the company for a privacy breach, and our office will take that through to the Human Rights Tribunal. And generally then the company is required to provide them with compensation. So the most recent one, I think, was about $90,000, but they get up into the hundreds of thousands. And your insurance won't cover it if you have been negligent.
So really, I know you talked about the pillars of privacy, but it's really about, there we go, gives individuals more control over their personal information. So although, we used to think of privacy as being a secret, often it's controlling who that secret is shared with, because, as you said, on social media, we often overshare, but we need to control how that information is used. So there are rules around how you collect information, how long you retain it for, those sort of things, which I think a lot of our partners need to jump onto. And if you go to the Privacy Commissioner's website, there is a whole lot of online training available there.
And one of the things that I try to say to people, because a lot of people seem to think privacy is complicated. I understand it, so it can't be that complicated. At the end of the day, if you shouldn't have information, get rid of it, because if something goes wrong and that information goes out into the wild and you shouldn't have had it in the first place, I'm not going to be going for education and advice. I'm going to go for a prosecution, because if you shouldn't have had it, you may have had a lawful purpose to obtain it at the initial part, but if you should have destroyed that, or you should have got rid of it, that is when you're going to go straight into a prosecution. So the basic simple thing is, make sure you've got a reason to obtain it, and the second you no longer require it, get rid of it. And generally, just follow those two things. It's hard to go wrong.
And make sure you use that information the way that you defined when you obtained it.
Yeah. So Principle 6 of the Act as well allows an individual, and this is where it gives individuals more control. Principle 6 of the Act allows an individual to request what information you hold on them. Anybody can come to you and ask for the information you hold on them. If you no longer hold it, then you can't provide it. And that has got some companies in diffs, because what they've done is they've sent emails between individuals talking about another individual. That is personal information, and if they ask for it, you are required by law to give it to them. And if you've been saying derogatory things in an email, it can get you in sticky water. So basically, get rid.
Yeah, it's called e-discovery. So do you see the New Zealand law following GDPR, for example? The Europeans seem to have a handle on privacy a lot more than the Americans and Australians, New Zealanders, and with our former commissioner now in the UK, are we going to go down the GDPR road?
We believe probably most likely. I can't guarantee that. It's up to the beehive and it's up to ministers and etc. But we feel that's where it's going to go.
Yeah.
And that's what we're expecting. But you never know. Nobody controls the ministers. They do their own thing.
Yeah. And as far as digital information and personal information that we harvest on people, whether that's through Google, Bing, or for the social media channels, there is a huge amount of data points on every individual that are used legitimately. But how many of us have read through those terms of use of a service? So a lot of that is around designing defaults. So if people access a service, then they're giving away their personal information, which is being used for marketing. So we're all familiar with the devices that send, we talk about something and next thing we've got ads in our face for it, how that information is used and controlled. And that, I suppose, comes into your extraterritorial bit there on how New Zealand citizens' data is being used by international organizations.
And everybody has one of these in their pocket now.
Yeah. And I'm bad, I've got talky ones in there. So we're about 3 minutes out there. There is a question in the chat from David. Why doesn't New Zealand institute a civil ID tagged to a unique ID that is tagged to a person? So I take what you're talking about there, David, is something like a social security number that the US are big on. It doesn't really help with privacy. It does help in identifying a person, but that in itself is a risk. How do you safeguard a social security number? And the same thing could be probably said about our NHI number. How many times is that exposed on the web, and how is that controlled? Because that basically, if you're authorized, you should have access onto that. If you're a doctor, you should be able to look up my NHI and see when I had my vaccinations or any sort of dubious medical history. But we need to control on that. If someone accesses my police record, that they should be who they say they are, and they should be doing it for a good reason, not just to find dirt on me. Is that correct?
It is. Although there's a report getting released next month that you may want to read.
Yeah.
You'll know when it comes out. It'll be all over the media, and it's just taken me 12 months of investigating to finish it. But I can't talk about it. But it comes out the end of this month.
Yeah. Was it accidental?
You can read it at the end of this month.
Yeah. But I know that the Beehive is looking at consumer data protection rights. Is that going to come under Privacy Commissioner as well?
We don't know. We don't know. We've only just got the new act. We're still putting it in, but our role is getting wider. This office has grown significantly, and the role of what we're required to do has grown significantly over the recent years. Yep. So who knows?
Good question by Matt before we jump off to prizes. And this is one that I had last week. Because our partners are basically partnering with a customer, and they're called in when there are breaches or incidents.
Yep.
Who is responsible for reporting to the Privacy Commissioner a possible data breach, and when would you do it? Because some of our partners see it as a breach of their contract with their customer. If the customer refuses to report it, where does the onus sit, and where would you jump on them?
So the customer is the one that I would be going after, if they obtained the information in the first place. So if it's the same as if there's if you've released the information, the person who obtained the information is the one responsible for maintaining the security of that information. So if where that can be different is, say, a cloud site gets hacked, it's up to the person who controls that cloud site because it's their security that's failed. But if an individual for a company releases information that was obtained, or it goes through a third party, it's the individual, the agency who originally obtained the information is the controller of the information. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But in this particular instance, where I'm thinking is that we've discovered that it was a email compromise, and then it spread, and they've managed to sync the SharePoint. So they have obtained information that could cause serious harm from the definition. So bank account details, those sort of things. If we talk to the director of the customer, the customer's director, he says no, he's not reporting it. So that leaves the partner in a tricky situation. They've reported to CERT that there has been a breach, but is there an obligation on our partners to report privacy breaches to the Commission?
There is, because it's actually a criminal offence not to report it. So the problem then comes that they're then implicit if they're aware the offence happened, and it's not reported, they can then be involved because they become implicit in the offence. So, and this is where the difference is now that it's become you'll see on there, it's got new criminal offences. This is why, because it has become an actual criminal offence. That's where that comes in. So if you're aware and you do nothing about it, you then become involved.
So back to Matthew's question, that, for example, a privately owned medical centre had patient information released into the wild by error or otherwise. So maybe somebody typing the wrong thing into the autofill in the email. What are the next steps they should take, and what steps should the medical centre owner take? So the reporting function on the website?
So the basics are go into the Office of the Privacy Commissioner website, and you can go in through Notify Us. And what you can actually do, we've created a system in there where you can go in and answer some questions, and then it will decide whether or not you need to report it or not. If it says that you don't need to report it, you can actually print out to show the fact that our system told you didn't need to report it, in case somebody comes back and you can say, yep, we went in, we did the system, and it said we didn't need to. If you do need to report it, the information then can just be carried over and it comes through to me. The individual whose privacy was breached, basically you would be expected to inform them as soon as possible, unless you can show grounds that to tell them would cause them more harm. It's quite a high bar on that one. And then the basic one is whoever the information went to, get hold of them and say, please delete, send it back, get rid. Often that can cure sometimes the problem. But they would be the three basic things that you would need to do straight off the bat. If you go into our website, on the Office of the Privacy Commissioner website,
which you can click on the links here. If you click on that banner,
which you can click through the link there.
Yep.
So if you go into there, we actually have templates for doing breach notifications. We have templates for dealing with a breach. We have templates for pretty much everything, doing PIAs, etc. We've even got an education system in there where you can go in and do a privacy 101. Which if with it set up so that if a company wants their staff to all do privacy training, that company can register, so that whenever the staff complete a 101, the company gets sent a copy of the certificate to say your staff member has completed, so that they don't actually have to go to a cost of setting anything up. We have done it. They can just register with us for free. Or individuals can go in and just complete the privacy modules and get qualifications out of it, which are completely free.
Does that link through to the private investigator security clearance
No.
stuff? No. Okay. Yeah, because that's something I'm pretty hot on, is that all our technicians should be security cleared to be handling customer information.
Yeah.
But I guess that privacy 101, and there was some other things on that those courses, is a good starting point to say that, hey, look, all my technicians have got privacy training, so they're aware of their obligations under the Act, and then we can talk to it. But let's jump that. And Jackie, you happy to stay on after we've done this for
Yes,
any other
yes, no
questions that
worries.
come up?
If anybody's
Yeah,
any
cool.
questions, no problem at all.
Yeah, I'm just conscious we're 6 minutes over time. So next week,
Sorry.
I've got Ian and Petra from Delta Insurance talking about the claims that they're seeing and the challenges on cyber insurance and what we need to do that. And then we'll wrap up Inspire, and Zach will announce the dates where we'll take the Microsoft Inspire on the road and come to a centre near you, and that will conclude the session. Something late breaking, we do have 10 tickets for the All Blacks game against a little known rugby team from Australia. So if you want to drop us an email on point at Digdata, we'll see if we can get you some tickets. Rhonda, I didn't arrange it with you, but have you pulled 2 names that are different from last week?
I hope so. What happened last week? I wasn't here last week.
Oh,
but,
no, the week previous.
I hope so. If I haven't, we can always redraw. Okay, so it was Alan Dennis.
Yep.
We haven't had Alan before, and Martin Beveridge. Sorry, guys.
Okay, cool. If Alan and Martin, can you just email delivery address to onpoint@ticketdata.co.nz. Those digital keys that we did a few weeks ago, I finally got them in the courier on Friday. So if you were the winner of those, you should have them by now. Today's prizes are the apron and the coffee mug. Last session, we'll be giving away 2 coffee machines. So we'll do that.
That's exciting.
It is.
And we can put everyone back in the drawer again, so they can win it again. Is that the plan?
Yeah, I think that's a good plan.
I think that's
cool.
fair, guys.
So I shall now stop recording. So if you have any questions that feel may breach your privacy or trust, then you can feel free to ask them.